Welcome to the It Is Written podcast. As doubts about God's will arise, the world resorts to feelings and experts. We go to the law and to the testimony of God's word. In today's episode, we are taking a look at the encounters that Jesus had with the religious teachers of his day. At some points, they try to trap him with his words. Other times, they will pick up stones to stone him, and eventually, they will have him killed. What lessons are there to learn from watching Jesus interact with these teachers? And what should teachers do today to be more like Jesus and less like the Pharisees?
So one of the really cool things about the Gospel of John is that there are a lot of interchanges between the religious leaders and Jesus. The religious leaders opposed Jesus, and we can see a lot of what they talked about and what they tried to do to discredit Jesus before the crowds. So we're in John chapter 7 for the moment, and would you read verses 25 to 27?
Sure. Some of the people of Jerusalem were saying, "Isn't this the man they are trying to kill? Yet look, he's speaking publicly, and they're saying nothing to him. Can it be true that the authorities know he is the Messiah? But we know where this man is from. When the Messiah comes, nobody will know where he is from."
So the people of Jerusalem are amazed that they're not arresting Jesus and trying to execute him. They know that they're trying to kill him. They were afraid of the crowds. They were afraid of provoking a riot. And the people were musing on whether or not he was really the Christ or not. And they said, well, he couldn't be the Christ because we know where he's from. Of course, ironically, they didn't. And that's part of the story. So keep reading verses 28 to 31.
As he was teaching in the temple, Jesus cried out, "You know me, and you know where I am from. Yet I have not come on my own, but the one who sent me is true. You don't know him. I know him because I am from him, and he sent me." Then they tried to seize him. Yet no one laid a hand on him because his hour had not yet come. However, many people from the crowd believed in him and said, "When the Messiah comes, he won't perform more signs than this man has done, will he?"
This is going to be quite a crisis for the Jewish leaders. The people are believing in Jesus more and more. The signs he's doing, they're beginning to wonder, how could the Messiah do more than this? They've got to do something. They're ready to act. How are they going to do it? Verse 32.
The Pharisees heard the crowd murmuring these things about him, and so the chief priests and the Pharisees sent servants to arrest him.
So they are sending some officers to arrest Jesus, and the idea is that they'll bide their time until a good chance to snatch him and arrest him. So they're not supposed to just go and arrest him right away. They want to find a time when they won't provoke the multitude to a riot. So they're going to be listening to him for a while. 33 to 36.
Then Jesus said, "I am only with you for a short time. Then I'm going to the one who sent me. You will look for me, but you will not find me, and where I am, you cannot come." Then the Jews said to one another, "Where does he intend to go that we won't find him? He doesn't intend to go to the Jewish people dispersed among the Greeks and teach the Greeks, does he? What is this remark he made? You will look for me, and you will not find me, and where I am, you cannot come."
So one of the things Jesus says several times here in John is that he's going to leave and they won't be able to follow him. They won't be able to come where he's going. And that haunts them a little bit, and they try to make fun of him. Well, he's probably going to the Gentiles. He's probably going to teach them, the Jews in the dispersion and those Gentiles. That's probably what he's going to do, thinking that that would be the ultimate slap in the face, the ultimate slander. Of course, the truth is, that is where Jesus was going to go ultimately through the apostles. He was going to go and teach the Gentiles and the dispersion.
Yeah.
So, ironically, they speak truth. We're going to see that happen several times. So these officers have gone out to listen to Jesus and find a convenient time to arrest him. And read verses 44 to 46.
Some of them wanted to seize him, but no one laid hands on him. Then the servants came to the chief priests and Pharisees who had asked them, "Why didn't you bring him?" The servants answered, "No man ever spoke like this." Then, how far did you say?
That's it.
Okay.
So they don't arrest Jesus. They come back empty-handed, and the leaders are like, "Why didn't you arrest him? Why aren't you bringing him with you?" And they're like, "Nobody ever spoke like this man speaks."
Yeah.
You know, they let them listen too long. They're enchanted by what Jesus is saying.
Yeah. Which, if you give an honest reading to the New Testament, to the Gospels, that's what you come away with. You go, "I've never heard teaching like this before."
But they can't possibly tolerate this. They can't be losing their officers too.
Right.
So they react to that. Verse 47 to the end of the chapter.
Then the Pharisees responded to them, "Are you fooled too? Have any of the rulers or Pharisees believed in him? But this crowd, which doesn't know the law, is accursed." Nicodemus, the one who came to him previously and who is one of them, said to them, "Our law doesn't judge a man before it hears from him and knows what he's doing, does it?" "You aren't from Galilee too, are you?" they replied. "Investigate, and you will see that no prophet arises from Galilee."
And so the chief priests are like, "You haven't been led astray too, have you? This multitude who doesn't know anything, they're accursed, but you're not supposed to be following them. You're not supposed to be listening to Jesus."
Yeah, that's right. And you remember Nicodemus had a very in-depth conversation with Jesus back in chapter 3. He knew enough to know this guy knows what he's talking about.
And he's a member of the council, but he's given pushback.
Yes.
He's saying, well, we shouldn't judge somebody before we listen to him, should we?
Right.
That's a good question.
It's a great question.
That kind of wounds them. And so they slander Jesus again. What do they say? You find out no prophet arises out of Galilee.
Yeah. You
guys should know better than that.
They keep kind of hinting at where Jesus is from. They go back in verse 27. Nobody knows where he's from, the Messiah. And then in verse 52, you're going to see that no prophet arises from Galilee. They keep hitting on that.
And what an ironic thing to do. Jonah was from Galilee. So was Elijah, perhaps Nahum. But more than that, Isaiah 9. Remember Isaiah 9?
Of course.
It's crazy that they would say this, because in Isaiah 9, this is the exact place God said the Messiah was supposed to be from. Read Isaiah 9, verses 1 and 2.
Sure, yeah. "Nevertheless, the gloom of the distressed land will not be like that of the former times, when he humbled the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali. But in the future he will bring honor to the way of the sea, to the land of the east of the Jordan, and to Galilee of the nations."
So that's specifically where Jesus was going to come from. If they'd read their Bibles, if they read Isaiah.
Yeah, and I was going to say, Isaiah of all of the prophets that they should be
and
reading.
all the passages of the Messianic, clearly Isaiah 9 it says that it'll come from Galilee.
Yeah.
They ignored that. It's
Yes.
amazing what we'll be blind to when we're trying to crucify Jesus.
Yes.
It's amazing. So look at John 11 then. We're going to see some more of this kind of thing. They just continually are trying to discredit Jesus. They're trying to give answers to what Jesus is saying, and it gets to be more and more ridiculous. So John 11, would you read 46 to 48?
Yep. "But some of them went to the Pharisees and told them what Jesus had done. So the chief priests and the Pharisees convened the Sanhedrin and were saying, 'What are we going to do, since this man is doing many signs? If we let him go on like this, everyone will believe in him, and the Romans will come and take away both our place and our nation.'"
They just can't take it that Jesus is becoming more and more popular. And they come up with excuses to do away with him. If they let him continue, the Romans will come in. He'll provoke a riot, and the Romans will come in, and they'll take our place in our nation. It's almost like the only patriotic thing they could possibly do is do away with Jesus. If
Right.
they don't, look at what they'll be doing to the nation.
Yeah, exactly.
They always try to rationalize what they're doing. And then verse 49 to 52.
"One of them, Caiaphas, who was the high priest that year, said to them, 'You know nothing at all. You're not considering that it is to your advantage that one man should die for the people rather than the whole nation perish.' He did not say this on his own, but being high priest that year, he prophesied that Jesus was going to die for the nation, and not for the nation only, but also to unite the scattered children of God. So from that day on, they plotted to kill him."
I love this. Caiaphas says, "You know nothing at all." That was more true than he realized.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't exactly intend it the way it came out. And then he said, you don't take into account that it's better for one man to die for the people than that the whole nation perish.
Yeah.
He means it's better to kill Jesus so the Romans don't destroy us.
Yeah.
But what he's really saying is true in a much deeper sense than what he intended. He's high priest, and God speaking through him without him realizing it, that one man, Jesus, was going to die for the people.
Yeah, I think Isaiah 53 certainly comes to mind with that.
Yes.
Isaiah again, popping up. Seems like they don't know it.
These religious leaders become kind of buffoons here, as what they say has a secondary meaning that's actually true in Jesus' case.
Yeah, certainly.
And they can't do anything right. Look at chapter 12 for a moment, just verses 9 through 11.
"Then a large crowd of the Jews learned he was there. They came not only because of Jesus, but also to see Lazarus, the one he had raised from the dead. But the chief priests had decided to kill Lazarus also, because he was the reason many of the Jews were deserting them and believing in Jesus."
Of all things, Jesus had raised Lazarus after he'd been dead for 4 days and was buried in the tomb, and now they want to kill the evidence. They want to kill him. Most people die once, and that's enough, but they think he needs a second one, and they're going to kill him.
Yeah, poor Lazarus.
So it just shows you Jesus' mastery of the crowds and of the enemies. And it makes you think a little bit more about the whole situation connected with the crucifixion of Jesus. One of the things that has impressed me about that is that nobody killed Jesus. He laid his life down for us. He says that in John 10. Mm-hmm. But you think about how much Jesus did to facilitate his arrest and condemnation and crucifixion. He had decided to drink the cup. So remember, he tells Judas, go and do what you need to do. Do it quickly. He organizes the time of his crucifixion by sending Judas out to do it. Mm-hmm. And then when he knows Judas is coming with the arrest party, where does he go? The very place he knew Judas would come look for him first. And then he finds them and they don't find him. Mm-hmm. He actually stuns them and they fall backwards when he pops out and says, here I am.
Yeah.
And so Jesus is helping the proceedings out. Then he gets before the high priest and the Sanhedrin, and they can't get two paid witnesses to tell the same fabricated lie. And so they turn to Jesus and he incriminates himself so for their benefit. It helps them. Then he gets before Pilate. And while he could have defended himself, and I think Pilate might have released him, he refuses to say anything so that he is crucified. Mm-hmm. So you see all along, Jesus helps the procedure out. They'd never got him crucified if it hadn't been for Jesus' will and determination to die for their sins.
Yeah, the Pilate example is helpful too. You're talking about the rulers in the narrative not realizing the weight of what they're saying. I think Pilate putting that inscription, the King of the Jews, up there would go into that as well.
Yes, that was very ironic because they didn't like that, but he was getting his last word in there. They were crucifying the king of theirs.
And it is true. He is the King of the Jews.
Yes. So much truth was uttered by people who didn't intend to utter it.
Right.
As God superintended that. So I think all of that just shows you the glory of Jesus. And I love John for having those interchanges like that.
Yeah, well said. Thank you for listening to the It Is Written podcast. If you would like to leave a review, we would ask that you would do so in your preferred listening platform so we can use this as an opportunity to reach those who would like to hear God's Word. We'd also like to remind our audio listeners that there is also a video component to this, so feel free to check us out. It Is Written, Gary Fisher and Chase Byers on YouTube. And if you have any suggestions or comments for future episodes, feel free to send Gary an email at garyfisher1063@gmail.com. We hope you have a blessed day.